All right, so the Oklahoma Sooners' latest availability report, it might not give you the most confidence in terms of Oklahoma getting star wide receivers back or really just any help on offense back at all, but there potentially could be some good news in the availability report that we're quite frankly just missing, and we got to talk about it today. We got to talk about with people being out, who can make an impact for Oklahoma this week? And do we see the return of Deion Burks? Because listen, he's listed as questionable again, which that kind of comes from the thumbnail title, not again, because fans are tired of seeing Deion Burks listed as questionable, knowing that he's probably not going to play that week. You want to see Deion Burks probably listed as probable to see him play on a Saturday, but with Brent Venables saying that Deion Burks is just day to day, I guess anything is possible in today's world. But with the soft tissue injury, anything can flare up. And so you look at Oklahoma's leading wide receiver. You heard me right. Deion Burks, through only 3.5 games, is Oklahoma's leading wide receiver, while Oklahoma has played 7 games. So that has given somebody on this team 3.5 games to take the leading wide receiver role, and nobody's been able to do it. But this is where I think you potentially have good news in the availability report, because you haven't lost any other wide receivers outside of Deion Burks for the season that were already out to start the season. And we saw last week a guy like Jacob Jordan, a preferred walk-on in his first game this season, just step onto the scene with 6 receptions and 86 yards. He's right behind a Jaquez Petaway and a Brennan Thompson and a J.J. Hester. And you would imagine a guy like Jacob Jordan this week is going to get opportunities. But even if Deion Burks comes back this week, which I still think is a possibility, if you guys were watching at home and you guys got to see on the SEC network, I'm pretty sure they showed you Deion Burks warming up, and he looked okay in the warm-ups last week. So I would imagine he travels with the team, he suits up, he warms up again, and it'd probably be one of those game time decisions where how does he look in warm-ups, how does he feel, and then evaluate from there. Like, do you think if you play him in that game, he could re-injure himself again with one of these soft tissue injuries? So I'd say by Saturday, we're probably going to know definitively whether Deion Burks is going to play. And I would say like early Saturday morning, right? I feel like you'll see like a Pete Thamel or somebody probably put out a tweet on whether or not Deion Burks is play. But again, I think this opens up an opportunity for a Jacob Jordan or a J.J. Hester or even a Brennan Thompson to really show up in this game. And with Joe John Finley taking over play calls this week, I really think we're going to see, him kind of try to scheme up some guys more open, especially Brennan Thompson. And I was talking to Jay over at Unfair Sports about this, and I said, one of the things that Joe John Finley has to do this week is he's got to sit down and he's got to look at every single play where J.J. Hester and Brennan Thompson have been wide open, and they need to run those exact same plays again, because there were multiple times in the Texas game that Michael Hawkins missed those guys. Once, I think, in the Auburn game where he didn't hit them, and then you had one in the Tennessee game where Brennan Thompson burned the Tennessee corner. I think it was Boo Carter. He completely burned him. Jackson Arnold connected with him, would have been a touchdown, but the refs blew it a defensive offsides and blew the play dead, which would have taken the touchdown off the board for Oklahoma. So those kind of opportunities, if you're Joe John Finley, you have to look for those. You have to be able to try and recreate those. And I do have some confidence that they can do that. And if you get a guy like Deion Burks back, maybe this is going to be a special week for Oklahoma offensively, because we see all the time throughout college football where a team will fire their offensive coordinator or fire a head coach, and the team just comes out with this momentum or this fire underneath them, and they go out there and play one of their best games of the season. And I think we could see that for Oklahoma this week. It's sad you don't see it at home. If it was at home, I would definitely think it's going to happen. With it being on the road, I think it's a little bit harder. But this is where Sooner Magic shows up at its best as well. Now, you might be saying, well, what data do you have to back that up? And I'll tell you, Purdue this year You could go look at Purdue. They had to play an Illinois team that up to the point that they had played Illinois, the most points that Illinois had allowed that season was 24 to Nebraska. And on the whole, their defense has been playing really well this season. 0, 17, 9, 24, 7, and 7. They allowed 49 points to Purdue the week that they played them. That was the week that Purdue had fired their offensive coordinator. And Purdue had came out there and absolutely stomped pretty much a mud hole offensively in Illinois' defense. And to put it in perspective, Purdue, up to that game, 0, 7, 21, 10, 6. That is what got Purdue's offensive coordinator fired. And so I think we could see something similar with Oklahoma, right? A change of the guard, a new voice in the house, right? Maybe that just opens something up a little bit more offensively. Now, additionally, on the availability report, you saw that Gavin Sawchuk was listed as doubtful. And this kind of gives you some questions. Okay, well, what does this mean for the running game? Well, I guess the good news is Gavin Sawchuk hasn't really performed well for you this year. Like, he hasn't been a big-time stat producer, so losing him shouldn't hurt you too much. I mean, obviously, you lose some depth, and you never want to see one of your guys injured. But I also think this gives an opportunity for a guy like Caleb Hicks, who we saw at the back half of the game last week, a guy who not only looked good running the ball, but this was a guy that actually, when you go look at his PFF grades, he blocked pretty well too in the passing block. So I would think you would see a little bit more of Caleb Hicks running the ball in rotation with Javonte Barnes and Taylor Tatum. And Caleb Hicks' athleticism is not something that Oklahoma fans need to be overlooking. So overall, you look at the availability report, and I think you feel okay with where it's at. And I can pull it up here. I realized I didn't have it pulled up. I think you feel okay with only having 2 guys on here, knowing that Deion Burks, although he's listed as questionable and Oklahoma fans are really saying to themselves, not again, you look at this availability report and say Deion Burks potentially could play this week. Gavin Sawchuk, probably not, but that gives a guy like Caleb Hicks opportunity. And a lot of people wanted to see Caleb Hicks get more opportunity because you didn't want to see him potentially hit the transfer portal this year, which I think is what a lot of people are potentially expecting to happen, seeing that Caleb Hicks hasn't gotten the run we thought he could get. So overall, looking at it, there might be potential good news on the table for Oklahoma hidden in this availability report, stuff you don't necessarily see. It's nice to see the team is overall pretty healthy outside of the guys that have been on this availability report all year long. Again, you're kind of putting your hands in your hair, saying not again with Deion Burks, but I do think we see him this week. And the next week, I think you see a Farouk potentially try to step onto the scene as well, which if you're Oklahoma, then you feel a little bit more optimistic about the offense. So jump in the comments below, join the discussion, give me your guys' thoughts on the availability report. Do you think Deion Burks will play? And if you guys are new to the channel and you guys have not already, make sure you guys hit that like and hit that subscribe button.